Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Lawrence Watkins, and he's not your typical engineer. He's formed multiple companies and he's worked in the investment sector and is now the managing partner of Malcolm Garvey, which helps organizations, business owners, and families use practical, market driven approaches to improve the overall well being of Black communities. Something I certainly can get behind. I'm keen to learn more about the differences between entrepreneurship and corporate life, making the transition from one to the other, and the work he does with Malcolm Garvey. So, welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Lawrence.
Thank you, Neil. I'm very happy to be here today.
Great. So, from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you studied electrical engineering. So, what was the motivation to do that?
You know, if I were to go back and do it again, I probably would have been an industrial engineer. But the reason that I became an electrical engineer is I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So just like a lot of kids who are good at math and science, the world pushes you to become engineers and say, hey, this is a good career path that you can make a lot of money in. And I was talking to one of my cousins who was technical himself, and I said, I don't know what I really want to do. He said, hey, have you ever decided, have you ever explored electrical engineering? And I didn't really even know what that actually was at the time. But I was like, oh, that sounds as good as any other engineering type of degree. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I just didn't know what specific field. But looking back on it, I think my skill set after college lends itself more to industrial engineering more than electrical. So I got there in I guess a roundabout type of way.
Interesting. When I typically ask that question, Lawrence, I get various types of answers. And for the longest while, I was embarrassed by my own answer because I went into engineering because my father said I should. And
Yeah.
so that's the only reason. I have no clue what an engineer does. And even when I was going through the program, I was just, well, like this is I was just taking one class and and just putting one foot before in front of the next, class to class to class. Then 4 years later, you got a degree, and I was like, okay, now what? But but
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, so that's exactly right. I mean, I was just thinking about, me getting my degree. I made, pretty good grades in college as well, but fundamentally understanding electrical engineering to this day, I still don't fundamentally understand everything that I've learned through those 4 years. I've learned a little bit more just by, living life and, working with, the home and, those types of things. But like just in general, in terms of what an electrical engineer actually does and what that actually looks like, I still don't fully comprehend. And that actually came about when I was doing my internships. I worked for a large car manufacturing company for 3 semesters while I was in college, and that's when I actually knew that electrical engineering, especially, wasn't for me. Just given some of the work that they had me do, I could do it, but I felt it was a little bit boring for me in terms of where my interests actually truly lied.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get good grades because that certainly was not my experience.
Okay.
I got out of that program with the skin of my teeth, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand. I definitely understand that pathway as well.
Yeah, but I also saw that you got an MBA. So, what was the motivation to do that?
Well, going back to my internships, uh, so one skill that I actually have always had is the ability to self-reflect and to just really be in tune with what's working for me and what's not from an intuition type of way. And I just knew engineering wasn't it. I knew I could be an average engineer, probably at best. But if I really wanted to try to be great at something, engineering wasn't the pathway. So I was just reflecting back on the things that I really like to do. And even from a very young age, business really stood out to me in terms of the things that just naturally I was inclined to spend my time with. I remember, this is when CD burners was hot back in the late '90s, early 2000s. Would burn CDs for my classmates and make a profit doing that, or I would try to sell these little cheat sheet note cards that they allowed for tests back in high school, and sold my classmates those, and just throughout life. I remember even being younger. Uh, this is when the Bulls were at their peak, and everyone wanted to be Michael Jordan. But for some reason, I just wanted to be the owner of the team. I don't know why. I didn't even know what the owner actually did, but I knew that's what I actually wanted to be. So, like, just thinking back through those experiences, I just knew that business was the pathway for me, much more than engineering. And I found that out in college. I knew engineering wasn't a pathway. It was either going to be business or politics, and I chose the business route.
Okay, so now you get a degree in electrical engineering. I'm assuming that your MBA might have come later, but what kind of work did you do once you got your engineering degree?
Well, thankfully I had a brother who was very ambitious and was a professor of finance at Syracuse University. His name's Dr. Boyce Watkins. So Boyce at that time was building his media brand, or his public persona, his public brand. So he actually provided me with an opportunity. He said, "Hey, Lawrence, why don't you turn down your corporate job offers?" I had a few from like General Electric, Bank of America, those types of organizations. He said, "Why don't you turn down those job offers and move to Syracuse with me and help me build my professional speaking business and help me just, get on TV and just build what I'm doing as an author, as a speaker." My thought process at the time was, well, I'm 22. I'm broke now. What's being broke another couple of years if things don't work out? But if they do work out, it could be something that could, drastically change the trajectory of my life for the better. So I took that leap of faith back in 2006 and moved to Syracuse to work with boys. And, my parents were kind of freaking out. They was like, he spent all this money, or they spent all this time and money trying to get this engineering degree, and he ain't even going to use it, right? And he's going to be moving to the big city of Syracuse, New York, because they thought Syracuse was like big city because they heard the word New York in it. Um, to work with it, work with his brother to, build this thing up. And, they weren't for it, but they, eventually came around. Yeah, that's what I did. So, all day long, I, had a routine. I would, read books at night about, best practices as it related to marketing and selling. Mind you, I never took a marketing or selling class, in college, right? So that wasn't even my pathway. So I did that at nighttime. In the day, I would test out what I learned the night before, and then I would spend some time reflecting in the afternoon in terms of what went right, what didn't, and then start learning again. And that created like a learning cycle and the ability to learn how to learn, which has been one of the most important skills that I've developed over my lifetime.
Wow, that's wonderful. I'm curious because a lot of times when people get these engineering degrees, as your parents alluded to, you go into a job at a General Electric or a Boeing or one of these big these big companies, but yet you took this different path. What was it about entrepreneurship that really, I guess, attracted you to it?
I think, although I am a technical person in the sense of being good with things like math and science and understanding systems, the creativity of entrepreneurship and the ability to create something from nothing is what I think stands apart with entrepreneurship, where you can just take a product, or you can take any type of problem that's out here, and it's going to take an entrepreneur or like an innovator or creator to actually solve that problem. And I think at the core, problem solving is what I really love and what I really enjoy. So whether it's something technical like engineering, or something that is very abstract, that doesn't truly exist, but you're trying to create a social solution. The problem solving ability, the problem solving aspect is what I care about the most.
Nice. But I also mentioned in the intro that you worked in investments in a while. So I'm curious, how'd you end up getting into that field?
Well, it's been a long journey. So I started my career after I worked with boys. I got him booked for a lot of different speaking engagements over a very short period of time. Also, media appearances. He was all booked all over national television at the time. So CNN, Fox News is when Fox News wasn't as crazy, but the CNNs of the world, MSNBCs back in the day. And, being the wise older brother that he is, he came back to me once again and said, "Hey, Lawrence, you're doing this for me. Why don't you start doing this for other people as well?" And that's what I did. And through that, I started my first business back in 2007 called Great Black Speakers. And we help organizations find African American public speakers for their events. So I did that for a while. We grew to become the largest African American owned speakers bureau in the nation. Things were going great. The only problem is that it had one fatal flaw, and that fatal flaw is that I did not like working with celebrities. I found it, to be a little bit entitled or quite entitled, and it just wasn't, where I wanted to spend my time and my energy. And I decided to go back to school to get my MBA my MBA from Cornell. And the purpose of getting my MBA was to the purpose of getting my MBA was to really just take my learning to a different level and to increase my social network as well. The learning aspect, I knew I could probably do that on my own. I was, hoping to get some nuggets, which I actually did from business school. But it was really the network, the brand, and those types of opportunities. But I say all of that because that's a long pathway to how I got into investments. I had another company, my brother, called the Black Business School, and that's the one that's been the most successful. So we help African Americans to obtain a culturally relevant yet practical education in all things wealth building at an affordable price. So people come to us because they want additional freedom in their life, or they want to have additional level of security as they go into their golden years of retirement. And we've grown that, to multiple seven figures in revenue. We've grown that to have educated over 160,000 people from all over the country over the last decade, or all over the world, over the last decade. So things were going really well with that, but although we were making impact, I thought there was an ability to make it an even larger impact as an investor. As an entrepreneur, you're just really solving one problem, but as an investor, you can solve multiple problems. You can solve multiple problems over time. So that's what I did. I put the word out, and one of my classmates from business school got back to me and said, "Hey, man, have you heard about what's happening in Tulsa? There's this foundation out there doing some amazing work, and you should really explore because they care about many of the same things that you care about." So I connected with someone here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, working for this firm called Atento Capital, which was like a hybrid venture capital firm slash economic development organization, idea incubator here in Tulsa. And that's what got me to my pathway to actually investing as from an institutional level.
Okay, so for the people, myself included, don't really know all that much about the investment field. What what kind of work do you do in that field?
It's all about decision making. I mean, it's all about decision making. And the decision that you're making is where do you put capital to get the highest return on investments, however you define return on investment. So from a purely financial perspective, ROI is just, you put this much money in and what opportunity is going to give you the best chance to get the most money out, right? But as I work as a part investor, part economic developer, we have a broader set in terms of what our goals look like and the decisions that we need to make in terms of like what does success actually look like. So part of it's money, but then part of it's job creation. Part of it is just overall economic viability in the city. So it's investing is really all about decision making. So are you measuring, tracking, having insights on the right things, and then are you making the best decisions possible to make sure that you maximize those returns, however you define returns.
Got it. You know, when you were talking, Lawrence, it also reminded me of the fact that you started out just out the gate doing, not doing the, I guess, the traditional route of going and working for an employer, and you did that for a number of years, and then you go under this umbrella with Atento Capital. I'm curious, what was the transition like, making, going from doing your own thing to now being under someone else's umbrella?
Yeah, so it was very interesting because now I am somewhere, I guess kind of in the middle, right? So yes, I did my own thing for many years, was an entrepreneur. I loved it. But I think as I laid out my goals and what I wanted out of my own life, I wanted to have the experience that only like an Intento Capital or institutional investor would have been able to provide. So I worked for Atento for about 4 or 3 years, I guess, three and a half years, something like that. Um, but making that trend, it was hard. So let me just say that. Yeah, it was definitely different. I was used to controlling my entire day and making decisions independently for just about everything that that I did as an entrepreneur. And now I had to be a little bit more, and that's just collaborative, but there were you have a chain of people that you work with, so it's like you're not the final decision maker anymore. But what I gained from that was access to a much larger pool of capital and a much wider array of a network. Just because I was helping to manage billions of dollars worth of capital.
Right.
So one thing that I always say is that there's a difference between proximity, access, and ownership. Proximity to power or to money or whatever. It's just you can work even at the lowest levels for a billionaire, but just because you see them every day doesn't mean that they're actually going to listen to you. Then there's access where you actually have decision making authority and capability. Let's say like a CEO of a large public type of company, so you have access to this this capital, but you don't really have ownership of it because you can always lose that positional power or that position and not have access to that that opportunity anymore. And then there's ownership. This is where people really want to be. Where you are the decision maker, and the buck stops with you. So when I came and worked as an institutional investor, I gave up ownership for access to a much, 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 much larger pool of capital. But now, after I now have that access, I'm looking for more of a balance in my life with some of the new initiatives and things that I'm doing, like Malcolm Garvey and the Black Family Institute.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, speaking of Malcolm Garvey, I'm really interested to learn more about that. So, what is Malcolm Garvey?
Yeah, it's the economic development consulting that I do. Here in Tulsa and beyond eventually, but mainly is here in Tulsa. Work with a foundation here, and I lead up their Black Capital Strategy initiatives. So basically, I advise them on how they can best use their philanthropic capital to support Black entrepreneurship in Tulsa. I work with the larger types of businesses, so those doing at least $10 million in revenue, but hopefully 30, 40, 50, $60 million and above, and recruiting them to Tulsa, but then also just thinking about three things. One is Black wealth creation in the city. Second is high quality job creation. And then the third thing is to create and to amplify role models outside of sports and entertainment who are Black as well to benefit the community. So Malcolm Garvey really centers around that from an economic development consulting perspective. But then also recently launched the Black Family Conference and the Black Family Institute. So basically, I created a framework about 4 years ago called the Black Family Master Plan, which is a cheat sheet for heads of households so that they can cultivate prosperous families, which is broken down into four different quadrants: earn, protect, sustain, connect. Earn is about increasing your income sources. Protect is about limiting your downside risk in life. Sustain is about making day-to-day life pleasurable and fulfilling. And the connect is about creating those memories and experiences with those that you care about the most. So I'm creating an entire brand, an entire product line around the Black family.
Wow. Wow. This sounds really well, not only fascinating but exciting too. So, where did the idea of developing Malcolm Garvey come from? Was it just you wanting to get back to the roots of what you were doing before with the Black Business School and Black speakers and Black fill in the blank?
Yeah, it was basically a merging of my time as an institutional investor and my time as an entrepreneur before that. So Malcolm Garvey is just an outgrowth of combining the best aspects of both of those pathways that I've taken previously, and creating a new and completely new pathway for the next phase of my life.
Got it. Wow, that's great. Lawrence, when I first started this podcast and YouTube channel, and it's still the case to this day, it started based on my own struggles having to give presentations in front of people when I worked as an engineer, and noticing
Mhm.
about a lot of the other engineers weren't all that much better at it. But someone like yourself who's been on his own for some time and worked in under an umbrella for a while and is now back on his own for some time, I suspect that speaking in front of others is something you have to do. Or and so when it comes to speaking in front of others, is that something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
Yeah, not at all. I was a very quiet kid, and who probably didn't, as many kids don't, right? But didn't articulate myself in an exceptional way when I was younger. I had a fear of really even talking a lot of times in my youth, and what got me over that though is I've always been ambitious, just outside of engineering or outside of academics. So in college, I ran for student government president, for example. So that got me on the campaign trail, having to give speeches, just to different organizations. I think the best way to get better is similar to how I learned when I started my company. When I was talking about that feedback loop of reading and learning as much as you can, better practical tips, practicing, and then after that, reflecting on what you've done to tweak the process so so you can get better. And I did that same type of thing when it came to professional speaking or in public speaking as well. Thankfully, I owned a speaker's bureau too, so I got a chance to observe a lot of different styles of speaking and figuring out, and that helped craft just like a comic going out and doing material. You get your own style, you get your own voice. You might emulate another voice for a little bit of time until you can really start to figure out what actually works for you. And I think over the years, I just finally figured out what worked for me. But it came with a lot of practice and dedication. Just really learning. I read a book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath that had a powerful effect on me. And there are other books, Building Your Story Brand, that really helped me out as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I got better. It didn't happen overnight. It took quite a bit of time, and really, I can still even get better than I am now because I haven't put that much. I put time and energy into it, but not necessarily the same amount of time as someone who's a professional speaker. What they might put into getting better at that craft.
Got it. When it comes to the speaking that you do you ever get nervous? And if so, how do you manage your nerves?
Yeah, I get nervous all the time. I mean, I even get nervous doing a podcast, such as this, or just really anything. I think I get nervous because I don't have an excellent memory, so sometimes I forget my points. So I have to make sure that I do a couple things actually. So one is slowing down when I speak because I have a tendency to speed up to the point where things seem to be going normal in my brain, but it might be a little bit too fast for the audience. So I slow down, but that also helps me to remember what I was going to say when I feel like when I realize I don't actually have to rush. I'm already a naturally fast speaker, so slowing down just really puts me at ease a little bit more. And the second thing is, making sure you have a notepad and paper around where I can just jot down simple notes to be reminders of what I wanted to say next. And then the third thing, I guess I'll add a third thing is just rehearsing. Making sure that you have just different sound bites and pre-rehearsed material that you kind of say in interviews and other types of things. It is practice those little snippets and making sure you have an arsenal of snippets that you have practiced and pre-rehearsed that still sound natural, but that you have in your back pocket just in case you ever get stuck.
That's smart. I really like that advice of having rehearsing those snippets because I'm sure it also helps makes you more memorable as well, as opposed to a lot of times you have some speakers that they tend to ramble, and then you start thinking to yourself, why is this person still talking? But if you got those kind of those quick little snippets, it really helps to keep things quick, but then as I said, also be memorable to the people you're talking to.
Yeah, and then you can mix and match too, right? So you can mix and match your presentations. The more snippets you have in your arsenal and that you remember, how to present, you can mix and match, given depending on who the audience is.
Yeah, for sure. For the people who are watching or listening to our conversation, Lawrence, and they see the benefit of getting better at speaking in front of others, what's the number one tip you could offer them so that they can start on that journey?
I mean, I go back to just having the process. Don't cheat the process either. Just like anything else that you do, whether it's, So one thing that I'm really into right now is exercise, and I was not a big person exercising and dieting and lifestyle changes as I get older. I'm in my 40s now. Um, but it took a process of me just doing that, learning how to, get on the treadmill every day, or learning how to lift weights every day, or whatever, whatever it is, and just kind of like learning, trying things out and seeing what works for my body and for my style and what I'm naturally kind of good at, and then reflecting and just continuing that process over and over again. The same goes for, I mean, the learning how to learn piece is the most important thing and most important skill that you can have, and just apply that to speaking. So make sure that you learn best practices in terms of how to improve, get out there and find opportunities to practice, and then reflect and tweak until you become really good at your craft of speaking.
Wonderful. This has been a great conversation, Lawrence. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is always a great place. So it's just Lawrence. I think it's Lawrence M. Watkins or on LinkedIn. If you just type my name in Lawrence Watkins Malcolm Garvey, it'll come up. Also, Lawrence at malcolmgarvey.com is my email address.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And to learn more about that, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you.